Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and we're here for another episode of the Data Center Podcast. I am here with my co-hosts, Matt, Will, Paul. What do we do here? It's been 3 weeks. We've missed you all. So, hey, if you haven't caught an episode of the Data Center Podcast, I have to ask you what's wrong with you, because it is the best out there. But hey, if you are new, hey, we analyze the week, and in this case, 3 weeks, top data center edge news. We're talking compute, cloud, security, storage, networking, operations, data management, AI, and a lot more. Little reminder, we do talk about publicly traded companies. This show's for information, entertainment purposes only. And by the way, if you saw my returns in the stock market that I've had, you would not even do anything that I do. Get a professional. Okay, let's jump in, gentlemen. How the heck are you doing?
Oh man,
good. I'm just living the life. I'm down here in my second home in the Florida Keys, and actually published a Forbes article about a connectivity experience at a 4th of July event. So I can't shut it off, Pat. I'm always analyzing.
That's great. Yeah, it's good. I've seen some pictures of you down there, and you're having a good old time.
It's sad you're down in the Florida Keys. I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
yeah.
So 106 figures down there in terms of heat.
No, it's been about 20 degrees cooler than Texas. So I'm enjoying it, but I can't wait to get back to the 100-degree temps next week.
I'll bet. Hey, let's jump in. We got a lot to talk about. This is 3 weeks of content. We're going to be talking Cisco, IBM, HPE, Oracle, AMD, ARM, IoNQ, infrastructure decommoditization, dirty data. And this has got to be Paul's
Sounds salacious.
mean AI bots. All right. So let's jump in. Surprise, Cisco acquires another companies.
Well, yeah, 2 more companies. So, Chuck's been opening up the checkbook apparently lately. So what they're doing is doubling down on their assurance portfolio. So they've made acquisitions in the past with Thousand Eyes and AppDynamics. And so in June, there were 2 announcements around acquisitions. One, Accedian. Accedian's been a partner of Cisco's for quite some time. Cisco announced their intent to acquire Accedian. What Accedian does is they focus on network assurance for service provider networks, so at the transport layer and for 5G networks. And this is just going to strengthen Cisco's overall capability to deliver network assurance, which just, very succinctly defined, assurance is just understanding what's going on within a network, having observability and visibility, and being able to be proactive in addressing performance issues and that sort of thing. So I think it's a great addition. Provide some additional depth from a service provider standpoint. And then at the end of the month, Cisco announced their intent to acquire a company called SamKnows, K-N-O-W-S. They're a London private company. And what they do is they focus on delivering embedded agents into more consumer devices like CPEs for broadband equipment and that sort of thing. And so the idea here is to integrate SamKnows and that agent capability into the Thousand Eyes portfolio for just a deeper level of observability, more endpoints that they can find, throughout, what is today. We're all interconnected now with the internet and that sort of thing. So from my perspective, 2 strong acquisitions. I did write an article last week about observability, and I talked about Cisco. I also talked about Gigamon and Splunk, in what those companies are doing to strengthen what they're doing around network observability. And again, Cisco is doubling down here, and they're really building a really, strong beachhead from my perspective.
So is there something we should take away from these 2, or is this just kind of coincident with the company's acquisition strategy and actually innovation strategy, which is, we can organically create this, we can partner, we can acquire, and I'm sure there's striations in between that.
Yeah, and so Cisco has basically grown its roadmap both through organic, development, internal development, and acquisition. So I really view this as they're doubling down on what they're doing around full stack observability to strengthen their market position and drive incremental revenue and create net new functionality for its customer base. Also use that as an opportunity to take share away from some of their competitors. So that's just my humble opinion. I wasn't pre-briefed on this. Normally I am. And so that, my hypothesis is that these two acquisitions came together pretty quickly. But like I mentioned earlier, Accedian was already an established, Cisco partner, but they must have saw some value in moving that from a partnership to an acquisition. So,
no, good insights here. I have absolutely nothing to add on this one other than, I love observability.
You do. We've talked about that numerous times.
I know. As we fractalize infrastructure, as we fractalize applications, you have to figure out what the heck is going on.
Yeah.
Develop some sort of an AI ops to figure out what to do when, it hits the fan, and move on. I also like it because making money on it is independent of where the data set is being processed, right? Yeah. You need observability, whether it's in the public cloud, whether it's in your own data center, the edge, sovereign cloud. You need all of that data to help manage that. So, hey, let's move to the next topic. And this is Paul's July reminder: don't eat the dirty data. So, Paul, is this similar to don't eat the yellow snow during the winter?
Kind of like that. I bet your dad told you when you were little, don't eat dirt.
Yes, he did. But I ignored that. I mean, look at the way it turned out, Paul.
Yeah. But anyway, I just kind of wanted to remind people, Watson X, IBM's Watson X is going to be coming out for general availability sometime this month. And I just want to remind people about Watson X governance. It's really important to get good data that goes into your model. You could end up like that attorney that built his case with Chat GPT, and it was all fiction stuff. But you need good data to avoid model drift and all kinds of weird things that can happen to your data. And IBM is building a governance toolkit that will enable trusted AI workflows, and it'll include mechanisms to protect customer privacy, and it will detect model drift and help regulate some of the new regulations that are coming out. So, anyway, I just want to throw that out. So when you're looking to, so many people are building different generative AI applications for almost everything you can think about. So when you're building models, make sure that you know what kind of data you're using. Typically, the foundation models that have been built are, 1/3 of the internet, and there's all kinds of junk out there. So IBM Watson X governance makes sure that you've got good, honest data going into it. So it'll save you a lot of trouble downstream.
Yeah, it's interesting. Kind of what's new was old, or what's old is new. I always mess that up. But as long as IT has been around, the quality of the data impacts the corresponding result. And whether we're doing, analytics, whether it's machine learning, whether it's deep learning, whether it's generative AI, your data has to be clean, but your data also has to be secure, right? And particularly in those areas that IBM's clients are in. I mean, you could pay staggering penalties in many of these areas, many of these regions, many of these industries, if there is a challenge with the data. I mean, heck, I'm finding it fascinating, and I had called this 6 months ago when this generative AI craze took off, but there are no free lunches. And now we realize that these big generative AI models were programmed using other people's proprietary data or trademark. You can't steal data, right? And we actually saw this at the beginning of search back in the end of the end of the 90s, mid 90s, that, hey, if you don't give us a piece of the pie, we're not going to let you access, and we're going to block robots.txt, which was Google's scraper. Anyways, interesting stuff. Any thoughts, guys?
No, not for me. But it's funny you say that though about the kind of the cleanliness, and it's a cute little lead in there, Paul. But it is true. I mean, I think about every job I've had, and the decisions that get made. Bad data leads to bad intelligence, which leads to bad decisions, right? It's you're right. It's as old as IT. It's as old as business, really.
Yeah, my only thought there is that with respect to applying AI to networking, AI ops, Pat, that you mentioned earlier, when I'm asked, by customers or journalists, who's credible, I typically respond with, well, it depends on the largest data lake, because you need a large amount of data to train these models effectively. And certainly companies like Cisco and Aruba have very large data lakes, but you often don't think about the cleanliness and the hygiene of the data that goes into that. It's garbage in, garbage out, right? So it's a great point that Paul makes.
What's new is old. What's old is new. I love it. Hey, let's move to the next topic, and that is AMD Epyc in storage. Matt, what is this a new thing? I kind of remember AMD Opteron single socket in storage before they pulled out of the market.
Yeah, a couple of announcements got made over the last couple of weeks around AMD. The first is that Oracle's Exadata 10M platform, their database machine, they moved to AMD Epyc as the CPU of choice, both for the storage layer and the controller layer. And the other piece was that HPE's GreenLake storage is based on AMD Epyc embedded. So I find these interesting for a couple of reasons. Yeah, it is, right? So I think what I really like about all of this is the fact that AMD has done so well in the cloud and high performance computing. Epyc is it's really made a lot of progress. One of the areas where AMD has kind of lagged a little bit in adoption has been in the enterprise. So this, to me, I look at what they're doing with Oracle and with HPE, and it removes those, or it lessens that kind of beachhead, or softens that beachhead into the enterprise for Epyc. So great win for them from a kind of platform perspective, but also really relevant because it drives greater adoption. It should drive greater adoption in the enterprise.
Yeah, is there some characteristic that you think AMD is doing different here? Is it pricing? Is it is the binary x86 compatibility? Because it has to be compatible with all the software that is driving these SANs and NASs and things like that.
I think it's a little bit of all of the above. I think pricing certainly comes into play, but I also think it has a lot to do with the architecture of Epyc itself, right? So interestingly, on the database platform, Oracle is utilizing all the highest end of Epyc's portfolio, which is the 96 core part. When you look at what they're doing for the storage controller, they go down stack into the 32 core parts. From what I've read, it has a lot to do with the per core performance and the memory footprint that Epyc has, right? I mean, you've got 12 memory channels, you've got gobs of memory capacity, 3 terabytes of capacity per socket. That has a lot to do with, and the size of the cache has a lot to do with performance of, both from a kind of an IOPS perspective and a moving of data perspective. So I think those have a lot to do with it, and certainly price. I mean, they've been very aggressive in chasing after the enterprise. I think this is another lever they're pulling. They know they have all of the other advantages. What I'm also curious about is when I look at other storage providers, the Pures of the world, Vast is a little bit different in that they're a little bit divorced from the hardware. But what are other storage providers going to do? There's obvious value in what Epyc brings to the table. I'm kind of curious as to whether this adoption is the beginning of a bigger trend within the storage industry.
Yeah, that single socket play that that AMD has always had. It's interesting, right?
Oh,
What
yeah.
they can do in one socket and what they're willing to invest is always impressive. So, hey, let's move to the next topic, and that's AI. And Paul, you entertained us with the first one, the educated one. But last week, I remember you going through and talking about catastrophic AI events. So, what can a mean AI bot do?
Yeah, you'd ask about some of the things that the AI could do. I pulled out about 3 or 4 of them here that I thought was really interesting. One is that what they're worried about is that AI has got the skill or the potential to really deceive humans. It can construct, believable type statement and make pretty accurate predictions about different things. So it can shape people's beliefs. So you can imagine what it can do on a social network, and it could do multiple things with that. So you're showing the research paper that just fairly recent came out, but it also can exercise some political influences and stuff. Not just like on a micro level, but it can use multiple actors to create, like a dialogue going back and forth, and can create, kind of a social event with that. The thing that's kind of scary is that the models are able to really it's been proven with some of the testing by Microsoft that models can make sequential plans and do advanced plans and create multiple steps. And unlike us, it can do things over the long term without getting too anxious about doing it. So it can do model planning in novel settings that don't rely on trial and error, and so it can create all kinds of havoc with that. Thing I thought was really interesting is that the model has the potential of actually knowing that it's a model.
Like self-actualization, like a person.
Self-awareness,
Yeah.
Skynet.
I know that I'm a model, and I can do things based on that. Like it depends on whether it's in a training phase or a deployment phase or whatever. It can potentially present different faces to the trainers and to what is deployed and that type of thing. So those are some of the things that they're worried about. Not necessarily that they're happening now, but it's certainly got the capability to do that. With some with the wrong programming or with accidental programming. So.
All right, this chapter of Scare You About AI is brought to you by C. Paul Smith-Goodson.
Yeah.
More insights and strategy analyst. We appreciate that. No, in all seriousness, historically, any great innovation has always had a downside.
Yeah.
And you probably all read about the debates between AC and DC electricity here in the United States and even in the UK, where I don't know if this is complete fact, but electrocuting people based on a certain type of electricity in the electric chair was used to scare people into doing something different. So we actually used that type of electricity already, so it didn't actually work. But whether it's cars, whether it's gas, electricity, any type of innovation has downsides, and it takes some time to kind of get ready to it. I think the only, this is my editorial, but social media is probably the only thing that, it is so toxic that we don't exactly need to know how it's reprogramming all of us. There is data. Yeah. It's amazing when you look at anxiety and depression in teenagers. Yeah. And the year that it spikes up is the year that Facebook came out as the only correlation that you can find to even justify that much of a shift. But anyways, editorial off. Paul, thanks for bringing this to us, and thanks for sharing. You can find the white paper in the show notes. So hey, let's move on to something that is probably less controversial, and that is HPE Discover recap, and maybe this can be Matt, Will, and probably Pat, and maybe even Paul's show. So Matt, why don't you kick this off?
Sure. My first takeaway is that AI is evil and it's going to rule the world.
Yes. And HPE is going to help you train those LLMs as a service.
And that I can use it to troll the city of Austin leadership on my Twitter handle.
Well, you noticed I just gave up on that.
You did, Pat.
I just bought places outside of Austin, so I care less about what's going on. So
yeah, same with me with Bastrop.
You can fix that. You can run for mayor of Austin.
Yeah. One of our team members already tried that, Will, and decided not to. And problem is, I have a full-time job. I'm not rich like Adler, right? Who can have hundreds of millions of dollars in real estate and be the mayor at the same time. So, anyways, Matt, save us from ourselves quickly.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So real quickly before I do, no one has commented on the mustache I'm growing, and I'm a little bit hurt.
Ooh. No, I didn't even notice it. I just thought maybe, when you get older, you just miss places, right?
I'm in my 50s, and this is the best I can do.
I thought it was comedy.
It's pretty good, dude. I'm impressed. I think I grow that in 24 hours, but
I have more hair on my back than I do my face. Okay, so where were we? HPE Discover. 3 big takeaways. The company is fully obvious. We knew this, but Green Lake is where it's at. As Beck would say, and it ain't changing anytime soon. I went through a few days in Las Vegas, sat through the keynotes, sat through some of the presentations, analyst discussions. Never once did I hear ProLiant mentioned. It is everything as a service, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just amazing. It's amazing. It's an observation about how amazing it is that the company is so committed to this everything as a service kind of vision and future in delivery.
Now you do get ProLiants though if you get any of their as a service that has any compute, right?
Oh yeah. And there's still plenty of customers still buying, kind of in a capital expenses fashion, still buying, off the shelf ProLiants and putting them in their racks. But just the kind of the messaging and the storytelling is all about kind of where they're going to, which
that's right.
I admire. Second is I love what they did with touching on or stepping on Paul's territory a little bit with AI and their LLMs as a service. I tweeted out during that, this is the democratization of AI finally. This is, first off, they're taking their investment in Cray and they're really kind of leveraging it from a supercomputing as a service. They're standing up these language models that companies can go in, companies that don't have the resources, the budget, the data scientists to go and kind of create their own models and tune their own models. They're allowing this to be done very simply and easily by, I don't want to say just anybody, right? But by organizations that otherwise would not have access to, number one, have access to language models or the tools to actually tune them. Love that story. I think it's going to do a lot for them, and it really does create a differentiated approach that they've delivered relative to their competition. And the third is security. So now I'm going to step on Will.
Security's everywhere, baby. Even though Will will try to claim all security as his own, man, it's in so many plays. It's kind of like AI,
It is. Maybe more, maybe even more kind of just kind of part of every fabric of everything. So our fearless, I was going to say hairless, but our fearless leader was on stage with Krista Sathwaite, and kind of it was an interesting topic that you spoke to, Pat, because it reminded people just how far and how deep HPE's tentacles are in the security space and how much they've actually, they've done, number one, and kind of led the market and really made the market for security at the infrastructure level. And while they didn't have any specific announcements, at Discover, it was a great reminder, and it kind of was a good recap of talking around the importance of, kind of security at those fundamental levels or foundational levels that we sometimes forget about because we do get caught up in the Palo Altos and the, these other companies that are doing so much kind of in other areas. So I'll stop there and let you jump in. And
Yeah, Will, why don't you jump in, Will?
Yeah, no, great summary, Matt. So the only thing I'd add is what I came away with being very impressed was, to Matt's point, their consumption service model and how that's been maturing. And what the Aruba networking team announced was offering its data center switching portfolio as a consumption service. So this is their CX10000 distributed switch. It's leveraging the AMD Pensando DPU. And I did post a Forbes article. If you look in the show notes, we've shared my Twitter link for that post. And I sort of speak to where Pensando is at. And I'm really impressed relative to who they're competing with in the DPU space with the likes of Marvell and NVIDIA. And they're offering a full software stack, forward, backward compatibility, and supporting that with a very robust ecosystem. So, so from my perspective, the company has extended its leadership in providing network as a service. There are a lot of their competitors out there, HPE's competitors, that are offering network as a service, but HPE has been very prescriptive. The Aruba team's been very prescriptive. They have 8, 10, 12 different flavors, depending on outdoor, indoor, and now the switching portfolio for the data center.
No, it's good stuff. And I want to weigh in on the Equinix deal that HPE has had a lot of things going on with Equinix. And if you want to do a colo, Equinix is one of the top. You can also look at folks like Digital Realty and people like that. But what HPE did is they expanded, they inked a deal for 7 sites. And it's funny, I looked at the map around the world and it kind of looked like an AWS Azure availability zone map, right? Where, and that was the first part. So they expanded it from 1 data center to 7. And the second thing they did, and actually HPE stock went down when Antonio announced this, was they were going to pre-populate. In other words, spend some CapEx and put a certain amount of hardware in there. And we've talked about the hybrid multi-cloud and the fact that the first AWS service, queuing service, came out in 2009. That's 14 years ago. And I think I can say that if I put OpenStack aside and just look at what VMware, Red Hat, look at the other hybrid multi-clouds, that stack is probably about 3 years old. Okay, so the maturity of those software stacks for the hybrid cloud aren't nearly as long as the public cloud stacks. So that's why, there's talk of all these people pulling back their workloads from the public cloud, but for every one that comes back, 10 go out. Mm-hmm. So, but I do expect that to even out. So where am I going with this? You can get up and running in a couple days now on HPE GreenLake through Equinix. And if you compare that to waiting a month and having it installed in your facility, that's a huge difference, and really one of the big check marks that defined and made the public cloud so popular. You can take that a step further and put a multi-tenant solution on top and a credit card swiper, and guess what? You have the frickin' public cloud. Right. And if I look at the profit model on that, with AWS getting 20 points of net of operating margin, there's a lot of margin, okay, to go there. So more choice. It's really good. The one thing I want to add on the LLM as a service is there were a lot of questions. No idea how it's priced. Mm-hmm. No real idea if you can bring in models from, let's say, a Hugging Face. Right. So it was exciting, but from my point of view, there's more questions than answers. How do you buy it? How is it priced? Is it by the cluster? Is it, how does it work? And I also thought it was interesting that the first instantiation sits on top of Cray hardware, right? With this amazing Slingshot interconnect, which is the interconnect that can pull all the GPUs together. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of downplayed. Totally get it long term, right? HP wants to create a software and a service that can go on any infrastructure, but it took a little bit of the oomph out of the out of the differentiation.
Yeah.
But all in all, big show, and you can check out our Forbes notes. Will, I put yours in. I put mine in, and I don't know, Matt, if you had written one yet, but you can put yours in there too.
Yep.
All right. We are moving, folks. 30 minutes in. Looks like we have 3,700 bots watching us right now. That's pretty impressive. I need to see where they're coming from after this, but I think that's pretty cool.
Don't
so, hey, let's.
Yeah.
What's that?
Don't do anything bad, bots.
Exactly. So, hey, let's go into a Paul topic, quantum. Paul, you did 2 AI, and you are the quantum guy as well. But what's going on here? I mean, I visited IBM's first North American quantum data center in Poughkeepsie, New York, earlier this year, and looks like they're scaling out.
Hey, it's good news for quantum. I mean, we're starting to move our data centers all over the world, and IBM, believe it or not, that's the new one they're establishing in Europe, in Germany, is the second. It's only a second data center. Poughkeepsie is the first one. So
cool.
So we're moving out. I mean, it's good news for quantum, and I think quantum's growing. So Europe has got some pretty sophisticated quantum users over there. So this is going to give them another option. They're going to put in, it'll be quantum machines with over 100 qubits. So they're not going to put any small things in. It'll be from an Eagle processor and up. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. That'll be the European cloud region too. So IBM's got two cloud regions now. So
yeah. So Paul, what's the benefit of having a quantum data center that's more co-located? Is this about data sovereignty? Is this about response time?
Yeah, it's all of the above. Europe has got some different standards than the United States has, and a lot of different regulations than we do. So this is an opportunity to kind of differentiate between the two data centers. There's a lot of classes, university classes over in Europe too, that according to IBM, there's like a million learners in Europe that have got advanced quantum skills through workshops and digital learning and things like that have been sponsored by IBM. So this provides a local presence. So I think it's good news.
Yeah, it looks like it's in Einigen, Germany, and I don't know if there's a road trip in your future over there, Paul, but I think you might need to go and inspect it for all of us.
Yeah, ich heiße Paul Smith-Gibson.
Ausgezeichnet.
Okay, you guys got to start speaking German now. So.
Yeah.
By the way, it's like the only language I speak. I pull it out when it's necessary, but usually only when Germans are talking behind my back and dissing me. And then I'll come in and say, "Oh, hello."
Yeah.
Anyways,
I can fake it. I was on a Swiss Air flight coming back from, I guess maybe it was from Munich. I don't remember. But the stewardess came by and asked me in German, would I like coffee? And I said, "Ja, danke, mit Zucker und Milch." So she went and got the coffee and brought it back and started speaking to me in German. I said, "That's all I know."
I know that's the one risk.
Really tricked me.
Yeah.
By the way, I thought it was being all like smart, taking German. I took 4 years in high school and 2 years in college, and I lived over there for a summer. Because my dad was stationed over there in the military, and the problem is that the Germans, they speak such good English that as soon as you start speaking German, they just want to practice their English.
Yeah.
I mean, I have never met a German person who wasn't fluent in English, and that includes cab drivers and areas, other part of the world where people don't necessarily feel comfortable speaking speaking English. But, you know, back in 1980, 82, they weren't teaching Chinese in high school.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, relations had just started to warm right after Richard Nixon. I think it was 70. Was it 72? Anyways, didn't make it over. We taught Spanish, French, and German in my high school. That was about it.
Same in mine, you know. And I took Spanish because my father was born in Brazil. They didn't teach Portuguese, so my grandmother spoke Spanish. So quick story, but took it all through high school, 2 years in college, but I get to use it today. Just, you know, the other day went to my favorite Cuban restaurant here in Isla Morada, and no one speaks English. And I brought my sister in, and I ordered the arroz amarillo and the frijoles negros. You know, and it's about all that I know.
That's good, Will. Gosh, man, I love Cuban restaurants down in Key West in that area. It's so freaking good. Those sandwiches they make. I mean, it's literally like crack, you know. Delicious. So good. Hey, let's move to the second to last topic. Energy is good. Keep it going. If not, you need to grab a Red Bull. If I could pass one of the, actually, I'm not going to show the logo because we'll probably get blocked. Anyways, I have a few sitting down. So this is an editorial statement next by Matthew Kimball. Infrastructure is not commoditized. What do you mean? I read 10 years ago that infrastructure was commoditized.
You know, and I've
what are you talking about?
I've actually said it. I've written it, and to some degree, it's funny because I brought this up again, going back to Oracle and kind of some of the announcements they've made, but you know, and what I'm seeing, and I hate to step on your toes here, Paul, but in the AI space as well. You know, in the era where, you know, the cloud era where it's just a matter of throwing up, you know, getting an instance and throwing your data or apps up there and away you go. You know, we're learning more and more how important hardware is, you know. So Oracle just announced that Database 19c Enterprise is certified for the ARM platform, and they're going to be running it on Ampere within Oracle Cloud, which is a huge deal. Anybody in database who's worked in database understands how big of a deal that is. That's part one. And part two, we've seen over the last few months, Dell, Lenovo, HPE, and others, Supermicro, come out with these very fine-tuned and designed for AI platforms. You know, Dell's got the XE9680, Lenovo is their platform. It just kind of reminded me that, you know, in an era where, you know, it really is a software-defined world and software-defined infrastructure, that underlying technology, if you don't have the right hardware, your app ain't running the way it's supposed to. That workload ain't. That language model that you're trying to train is going to take a whole lot longer or not get trained at all. That database isn't going to perform appropriately. And so it's kind of a reminder for folks that aren't on the technology vendor side, but on the IT side, that, you know, while you think in abstract terms of software, you still got to think about the underlying platforms and what you're deploying the software on, because it does have meaningful impact. Boom, that's my editorial.
No, that's good. I mean, Matt, you know, all of us had real jobs in prior lives, and I spent most of my time in product management, product marketing, and, you know, strategy roles. And I was always a believer that you allow yourself to be commoditized, and that's either an industry or a segment in type of an industry or a company, right? Mm-hmm. And even in semiconductors, I remember 15 years ago when it was, oh my gosh, software is eating the world. Semiconductors are a commodity, and look where we are today. I mean, you just can't be doing any of what we're doing today without some differentiation in compute, inside of networking, and to your point about AI, AWS has shown that, you know, if you think it's going to be commoditized, just watch us, right? And they ended up doing themselves, and with Graviton, they took out all the stuff they felt they didn't need, like SSE, big blocks. They specifically architected that chip for their data centers. Yep. And their racks and their fleet of racks. to operate best in their data centers. So, yeah, infrastructure is not commoditized, and I think if we look over the last 40 years, there's been this back and forth between differentiation in software, differentiation in hardware, and everybody's, you've seen the Spider-Man meme when they're pointing at each other, right? No, you're commoditized. No, you're commoditized. Right. And by the way, some of the plays we see right now, if you look at the SaaS players, is to commoditize IaaS. Yeah. Right. Hey, none of this stuff below the SaaS layer even matters. Right. And then you see NVIDIA trying to decommoditize. By the way, they're not commoditized right now, but what they're doing is they're finding ways to add so much stickiness to what they're doing. It's not just a chip. They're selling an AI card. Oh, by the way, you can't even buy the AI card. It's a DGX box.
That's right.
With an H100 in it. No, by the way, hey, you should really be running my libraries and my frameworks on there, my CUDA frameworks, along with the libraries, and then with generative AI. Hey, here's 3 or 4 models that we built as well. So horizontal and vertical integration. You have to love it. I don't know if NVIDIA is just brilliant, or they don't see the risk that they're running right now, basically competing with everybody, all their customers.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's a little bit of both. Yeah. I think it's a bit of both. Just if I could just add one more thing on there, Pat, because you mentioned the silicon, and I find this absolutely fascinating. It used to be you had AMD and Intel, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, ARM crept in. Now to what you're saying, you talk about Pensando, we talk about Mellanox. Yeah. You see very specific silicon being produced for very
Silicon One with Cisco. So, I mean, that, in the networking space, I mean, that's how some of these infrastructure providers are differentiating themselves on the hardware side, for sure.
Yeah, and it's not just about absolute performance in one area. It's about performance for specific needs. Intel and AMD, vast difference in those two chips, but there are places where one works best. There are places where the other works best, and then you introduce ARM, and it's like it's fun to watch and it's fun to track. It's sometimes challenging, but innovation certainly isn't dead.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Hey, let's move into our last topic. This is a C. Paul Smith Goodson topic. Forget about that data center in Einigen, Germany from IBM. IoNQ as a Swiss quantum data center.
Yeah. And another data point for the expansion of American quantum around the globe.
So what can I do there, Paul? Like, how do I sign up? Like, what do I do? And
this is an interesting one. There's a project called Quantum Basel in Basel, Switzerland, obviously, and it's a large project with 9 buildings and up to 50 companies that's being built, the campuses. And IoNQ's involved. They're going to establish a European, Middle East, Asia data center in connection with Quantum Basel. And they're going to deploy 2 of their IoNQ trapped quantum computers. The first one will be what they call algorithmic qubits. It's 35 algorithmic qubits, and then the second one will replace that, and it's going to be like 64 algorithmic qubits. And IoNQ looks at algorithmic qubits as being qubits that are effectively usable within a quantum program. For instance, they've got a 32 qubit machine now, Forte, and it's got 29 algorithmic qubits. So, you lose a couple of qubits due to errors and different things like that. So,
gosh, Paul, you mean all qubits are not the same?
All qubits, all the qubits are the same. They just don't act the same, So it'll be interesting because
qubits gone wild, Paul. Right?
Pardon?
Qubits gone wild.
That's right. Yeah. Along with dirty data.
Listen, Paul has written more than I have even made up on quantum about how to measure qubits. So, and I think there's like 4 or 5 different ways to do that right now, Paul.
Yeah, that's right. I'm I'm cited in Wikipedia on quantum volume, so I can retire now. So
Totally.
But anyway, let me get back
for every click, right?
Anyway, IonQ is going to have 64 algorithmic qubits. Is going to be a large machine in terms of power. So it'll be interesting to see that. I don't think they're going to have any trouble at all getting to 35. In fact, I believe that they haven't told me this, but I just suspect they probably got a 35 algorithmic qubits running in the lab someplace with customers testing it out. So
I love the competition. I love the innovation. I was a little afraid that generative AI would take all the investment out of quantum. It might be too early to see, but we do have people with some pretty big war chests out there, and the amount of federal money going in there is staggering and really good.
Yeah, IonQ's got almost $600 million in cash equivalents and investments. So they've got enough money now to reach their long-term roadmap goals. So, and this a deal with Quantum Basel has added a couple of like maybe 25 million to their business expectations for the year. So for 20
nice.
Yeah.
Gotta like that.
Yeah. So
all right, folks. Great show. We always end up with what's next? Where are you going? Where are you off to? Literally by a miracle of God, I was in Austin for 3 weeks. I have 1 more week here. Can't tell you how amazing I feel. But let's go down the line. I don't know, Will, where are you going the next couple months?
Well, I'm actually headed home next week and doing the final move into a new home in Bastrop. So I decided to get out of Austin. So I'm pleased to say that for the next 6+ weeks, I'll be at home unpacking things and just enjoying my new homestead. So, and then
you did it.
Yeah.
You blew the bolts. Are you going to keep your place or just keep it and lease it out? Or are you done?
I'm going to keep it, and we're going to bounce back and forth for several weeks, and then I'm eventually going to rent it and get some income off of that. That's a little bank, Pat. I'm not planning to sell that. Maybe when I retire, when I die, I'll sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So looking forward to that. And then I hit the road kind of late August, and number of events. Just confirmed I'll be attending an NTT event in Tokyo in November. So I'm super excited about that. They're an integration partner with Cisco and a lot of the private 5G deployment activity there. And so getting to know that team a little bit more, and hope to be working with them in the not so distant future.
Exciting. Matt, how about you? Are you homebound for the next 6 weeks?
Yeah, I still have that house arrest thing going on. So
you can cut that thing off,
I've got it. No, I'm home for a little bit. I'm going to be taking some downtime with the family. But I've got what's coming up. VMworld is coming up. Oracle Cloud World's coming up. I have a couple of engagements with Dell and HPE and IBM. So I'll be here and there and all over the U.S. and tweeting away and threading away, I guess, now as well. So.
Oh, it sounds good. Yeah, you're moving up in the ranks too, buddy. Right, in the AR Insights top analyst. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'm here for another week, and then I'm hitting Splunk.com for 1 day in Vegas. Off to Korea for a week, and then I'm off to Seattle for a couple days, and then doing some Mongo stuff, and then hitting VMware Explore, Google Cloud Next, and then I'm going to take a week off in September. Is it a real week taking off? I don't know. It's hard to take my hand off the wheel, it really is. It's a problem.
I'm looking for some AI. I'm going to go to generative AI for scrapbookers or something like that,
There we go. I hear that's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Seriously, there's a couple of AI events I'm going to go to. One is in Austin, and then one is in Vegas. So
I love it. I love it. Don't get too sucked into Vegas, Paul.
Yeah.
We've been there together.
I like to play craps. That's my game.
Yeah, you're pretty good at blackjack too, aren't you?
No, I'm an odds guy.
I love it. All right, folks, really good show. I mean, we talked about so many things I can't even list them off. Just watch the pod again. It's recorded. So hey, we love feedback. If you want to give thanks, you can give that to me. If you want to put some shame and give input, give that to Paul, Matt, and Will. We're all on Twitter. We're all on LinkedIn. You know how to find us. No, seriously, I appreciate everybody checking in. Like what you heard, hit that subscribe button wherever you are, and have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on the planet. Take care.